Here we have a program that has an array. We've called it A. It has 4 elements, each of which is an int. And here we have initialized A. The first element contains a 3, a 56, a 9, and a 34. And now we are going to print it out. I don't need the braces in this for loop because the only thing I'm doing is that one statement there. It's not wrong to put the braces, I just don't need them. Let me print it, let me run it and make sure that it works. Yes, it does. Here are our 4 elements in our array. Well, let's have another array. And I put one in here, but I commented it out. So let's move down a bit and take out those comments. And you'll see that what I did is create my array a little bit differently. I created it. Let's just show the difference between the 2 ways. Here we're saying, okay, we've got a new array, contains 4 elements, and these are what they are. This is an array. We don't actually say it contains 4 elements, but we put 4 elements in these curly braces here, and that's telling the machine that this array is of size 4, and those are the elements. So this is kind of a quick and easy way of creating an array when you know initially what the elements are. So now I've created it, and now I'm going to print it out. It looks very similar to that. In fact, it looks almost the same as that. The only difference is that the name. This says A and this says my array. So let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so now I have my first array and my second array. So I wasn't real smart. I didn't put one on each line, which would be nice. I can solve that problem by adding here a print line. And in fact, if I wanted to do the same thing here, just in case I want to print something later on and I want to start on a new line. So now when I run it, my first array and my second array, everything's good. Well, I look here and I see that this piece of code and this piece of code are very similar. The difference is the name of the array. And we know that when we do something several times, if we keep on repeating the code, that's usually a signal to us that there is a better way of doing things. Now, this is not a loop, but we are still talking about reusability. So here is a piece of code that we are reusing. Very similar piece of code that we are using again. Which leads us to think about a module, which is in Java is called a method. So if here we have a method that prints out an array of length 4 that happens to be called A, and here we have a method which does the same thing. So I'm going to instead of using these 3 pieces of code twice, I'm going to write a method which I then can use twice. Methods are written after main or before, but outside of main. I'm going to always write them after. So this is the brace for the class. This is the start brace of main, and this is the end brace of main. Sometimes it's nice to just label them. And this is the end brace of the class. So in between these two, I'm going to write my method. So the syntax of a method starts, it's very much like this. Public static in void. We'll talk about that word void later, but we're going to start it out right now as void. Public static void. And then not the word main, but the name of our method. And we're going to call our method print array. And there's the start, and there's the end of our method. So instead of putting those 3 lines there, I put them in the method, and here I just call my method. My method is called print array. So I have to tell it which array I want it to print. And in this case, my array is called A. And here, my array is called my array. I'll take those lines out. So instead of having that loop, I'm going to have a method call. And the same here. So again, I created an array, I put some numbers in it. And then I call a method that's going to print it. I make another array and I call a method that's going to print it. Let's just finish up this method. Public static void, just like here, public static void, that's the name of the method. That one was called main. This one we're calling print array. And then in here, there is something. These things are called parameters. So this is a type and this is a name. So what parameter do I need to give to print array? I need to tell it what it is I want to print. And what it is an array of ints. So here it's an int array. And this is called A. That's a lot to take in. Let's run it and make sure it works, and then we'll talk some more. Oh look, it worked. So again, what did we do? Created an array and we called a method to print it. Create another array, call a method to print it. I have to tell the method which array it's going to print. If by mistake here I say A, what happens? Well, it printed A and then it printed A again because that's exactly what I told it to print. If I tell it to print B, which is an array that doesn't exist, it's going to tell me it didn't exist, so it's got a problem with B. But if I put my array in here, it works. If I look at the method, that says A. how come it works on my array? It works because this doesn't care what the name is. This says print the ith element of whatever array you told me to print here. So in this case, I'm telling it to print my array. So don't think A anymore, think my array. So this is printing the 0th elements of my array, etc. In fact, I could call this B, which doesn't exist at all in main, and it would still run. And you would still get the same answer, because this is just like a placeholder. This doesn't have to be in main, it doesn't have to be anywhere. All that this method is saying is somebody's going to give me an array, and whatever array they pass to me, I am going to print it out element by element. Well, that works as long as the array is of length 4. What happens if it's not of length 4? Do I have to write myself another method? The answer is no, because here, if I put the length of B, then it doesn't matter however long B is, it'll print it out. Let's just verify that it works for 4. Okay, so let's make ourselves another array. Oh, I could have just copied the whole thing. Let's copy the whole thing. Let's call it something different. Let's just call it C. And let's add some more elements to this. 100. Keep putting 34s. Okay, so here we have another array. We're going to ask it to print C. Let's see if it does. There you go. The first one, the second one, and C. So now it can print all of the elements. We don't have to tell it up front how long it is, how long the array is, because here it uses the length. So we've got a method here that will print out any array as long as it is an int array. Would it work on a string array? The answer is no. I would need a different one to write out strings. Oh, I wonder if I could do that. If I take this and I copy it, I have to call it something. You know what? I don't even have to call it something different. The machine is smart, a little bit smart. It will choose the correct print array depending on the type of parameter. So let's make ourselves an array of strings. Call it S equals cat, dog, Okay, an array of strings. And let us try and print it. And there we go, printed it all out. So this method called with an array of ints, it will choose this, and this one, an array of strings, it will choose this one. So you say to me, why did I have to write this? Because, let me comment that. I have to find comment now. Edit, comment. Okay, let's comment that out. So now we just have the one print array, and it's expecting an array of ints. And when I do this, it has a problem because it says it can't, it's got an incompatible type, and that I'm trying to convert a string to an int, which I'm not. I just didn't write the right method. So the methods themselves, they look the same. The only thing that's different is the type of the array that's being passed to this method. But I do need to have them both. If I want to use them both, I can use the same name. I can use a different name if I want, but I can use the same array because the compiler will look at this and say, okay, I need a print array, and the parameter is an array of strings. Do I have one? The answer is yes. Okay, I use that. This one, I need a print array, and the parameter is an array of ints. Do I have one? Yes, and there it is. So there, we have learned to use a method. And by using the method, we can reuse it. We can even copy it and use it in another program. We can build ourselves a little library of methods, and that's enough for today.